Hello everyone, this is the Tubular Quad version 6, which is a custom FPV freestyle drone that I designed and built from scratch, and it uses tubes for arms instead of the typical flat carbon plate. So in my previous two videos, I went over all of the design changes for the version 6 of this frame. I went over how I built this frame and how to get the free plans. So if you are interested in any of those things, make sure to watch the previous two videos about the latest and greatest version of this frame. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the electronics and goodies that I use and why I use them. So maybe this will give you some insight into what components you should choose for your setup. But first, let's see the electronics installation and final assembly of this drone. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that time lapse. Now let's take a look at all the electronics and goodies I have on this frame, working from the outside inwards. So first up are the arm bumpers. I'm typically against a lot of 3D printed stuff on quads because it adds weight. However, I deem these necessary because the ends of the arms are only 1 millimeter thick, so they get chewed up pretty easily. So these are kind of consumables to save the ends of the arms, and all 4 of them only add 2.5 to 3 grams to the entire quad, and they are friction fit with a dab of super glue in addition to that to really keep them in place. Moving on to the props, these are the Ethix K2 6x4 props. Yes, I prefer 6-inch twin blades over 5-inch tri-blades. I personally have found 6-inch twin blades to have higher speed, better grip, better efficiency, and just an effortless feeling that 5-inch tri-blades I have found to lack. So if you haven't tried 6-inch twin blades, I really do highly recommend them. These ones in particular, the Ethix K2s, I have found to have a good balance between performance in terms of grip and power and control feel. Now spinning those props are the Hyperlite 2206.5 1922 kV motors. Now my observation has been that for your typical 5-inch freestyle build, the motor sizes have been growing in terms of what your average pilot uses. Typically I'm seeing, 2306, 2207 or larger. However, with how light this quad is and with how low the moment of inertia is with the short fuselage and the toilet tank battery, I don't really need a big motor for response, and I don't need a big motor for thrust. So these 2206.5s are plenty. I have run 2206s before, and those are still plenty for a lightweight 6-inch build. The KV is 1922, and I use a 4S battery, and this is pretty low. I consider a normal KV on 4S 6-inch to be 2200, and the reason for that is, once again, this quad is very light, so I lower the KV to give me better throttle resolution. I don't need the greater RPM and greater thrust of higher KV because this thing is so light. And underneath the motors are my custom designed and 3D printed soft mounts. They match the shape of the base perfectly, and that is just to save very tiny amounts of weight, but it also is very clean. What also is clean is how the motor wires are routed, so they just go in the end of the arms and they just kind of disappear, especially in this version. So you can't really see where they come out, and that is because they come out in front and behind of the arms in the fuselage. So that brings me to the stack. This is the Newbeedrone Infinity 200 stack. It's a 20x20 stack, which saves me a bit of weight. However, the ESC is 45 amps, which is total overkill for this setup. I pull about 80 amps at full throttle, so really 25 amps per motor would be plenty. So I could save probably a couple more grams by going to a more suitably sized ESC. And I had a problem with the flight controller. I was pulling maybe a little over an amp from the 5-volt BEC, which is rated for 2 amps. But even at that power draw level, it was causing some really crazy gyro noise and jitters that were so bad that the quad would not arm. So I haven't even flown this flight controller yet, but I can warn you that this flight controller cannot provide the rated 2 amps of current from its 5-volt BEC. Another thing about this stack is that the ESC is extremely long, so I've actually had to mount it sideways to give adequate clearance between the 5th standoff and the stack. So I had to reassign the motor outputs on the flight controller to make everything work, which is fine. One advantage of this is that the motor wires now come out in the front and the back of the arms instead of to the sides, so it looks really clean from the outside. And the battery lead comes out right where I want it on the side, and it just goes right here instead of coming out the back and wrapping around. So one of the reasons why I wanted to use this stack is because of that 5-volt BEC, which is powering the TBS Unify Pro 5-volt. And the 5-volt is smaller and lighter than the high voltage version, so that's why I wanted to use it. And I've had good luck with these video transmitters, and it is hooked up to the TBS Dum Dum antenna, which has a direct U.FL connection to the video transmitter, which again is to save weight. This is a very light antenna, a very light video transmitter. The antennas do work well, however, they're not as durable as the old full-size Triumphs. The top tends to fly off in the event of a prop strike, so I may actually add some thin CA around that seam to help prevent that from happening. The receiver is the LemonRX Diversity Satellite Receiver. Yes, I fly Spektrum. However, I don't trust Spektrum brand receivers because I lost 2 airplanes to the same faulty receiver. I've had good luck with LemonRX though, and they were offering Diversity satellites before Spektrum themselves were even offering them. So the satellites are small, they work, and these ones have Diversity, which is nice. And the last piece of electronics is the camera. This is the Foxeer Aero Micro Pro. There's nothing special about it. It's just a 600 TV line CCD camera. There's probably better cameras out there. The main thing about this is that it is micro, so it is very lightweight. And that is generally my focus when it comes to picking out my electronics. Now, because of the power draw problem I had with the flight controller, I solved that just by running the camera off of the battery voltage, which it can handle, and that solved the issue, at least on the bench, but we'll see if it causes any issues in flight in the next video. Other things to mention are the FPV camera mounts. These are the same style as the ones you can buy off of Pyrodrone. They worked fine for me, so I actually just measured them and basically copied them and printed them out. And then there is the GoPro mount. This is designed for the GoPro 5 through 7. I run a Hero 7, and you can see it's just designed to be extremely lightweight. It's even got a hole in the bottom here. It's got these little kind of legs to maybe help with vibration isolation. But I've used this design for quite a while now, and it's worked quite well. And it's very lightweight. It only weighs about 12 grams compared to things you can get off of Brain 3D, which tend to be closer to 30 grams. I use Grip for the battery pad. It's very sticky and very light, so that works well. And the battery I use, I almost forgot, is the Tattu Fun Fly 4S 1300. And yes, I fly 4S because this quad barely pulls any power. So moving up to 6S would have negligible gains in efficiency, and I definitely don't need the extra power of 6S. So 4S is totally adequate, and these Fun Fly batteries are really good because they are really light. These are about 15 grams lighter than the China Hobby line 4S 1300s that I used to run. And these are really what have enabled me to get under 600 grams all up weight. The dry weight without the GoPro and battery is 321 grams, and the all-up weight is 593 grams. All right, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed or maybe even learned something about choosing electronics. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Let me know down in the comments of what you thought of the Tubular Quad version 6 and the electronics that I use. And if you enjoy this kind of content and want to help support the channel, just click that subscribe button. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can also support me on Patreon. Lastly, if you can't get enough of me here on YouTube, I also have an Instagram page, timmy.r.c. Thanks for watching.